Hey everybody, I am here today with our leading lady, Frances Hinojosa, and we're going to talk about breaking through glass ceilings. Frances, tell me about your childhood and your experiences growing up.
I had a great childhood. So my parents came over here from Croatia, and you know what, it was interesting. I spent a lot more time with my dad than I did my mother. Only simply because there's no rhyme or reason to it. I think being the middle child of the family, I have one younger sister and I have two older sisters, just sort of played out that way. But interesting spending more time with my dad and reflecting back on this project. You know, I grew up in the construction industry. So my dad had a construction company. So I was around a lot of men. And growing up with my dad, there wasn't really any genders associated. So I think that's really sort of where it's kind of tagged who I am today and where I see people. I see people. I don't see men. I don't see women. I see human beings. Right. So it's a different way of reflecting on seeing an individual, not reflecting on their gender.
So your dad just treated you like one of the boys?
Brought me in the construction company like one of the guys. So, you know, my job on the weekends is I would go to the construction site with him. I would help him clean up the construction site, like pick up the pieces of wood. I knew how to drive a forklift when I was 10 years old. If you can believe it. So, you know, my dad didn't limit us by, you know, you're a girl, so you can't do something. Right. It was, no, you know what, you're a human being, you're a person. You can do anything that a boy can do or a girl can do. There was no real gender specific in our household, which was really interesting. Yeah. And then also watching my mother as well. Like, I had great parents. So my mom was a stay-at-home mom, but it wasn't, again, gender specific. My mom did everything else for the family, like, and everything else for the business. So she did all the bookkeeping, she did all the booking, she did all the negotiations. So, you know, I grew up in that environment seeing this couple. It wasn't gender specific necessarily in the house. Like, they had their things that maybe were gender specific, but they did a lot of things that cross genders, and it wasn't, you know, you're a woman, you must do this in the house, or you're a man, you must do this. They actually worked together as a team.
So your dad could cook dinner and your mom could take out the garbage?
My dad could not cook dinner. Actually, no. My dad could not cook dinner, bless him. He couldn't cook dinner, which is fine. But, you know, it was more around like the working environment. Sure. You know, we, and even to this day, I instill that in my little girls as well. I mean, a house, this is not, you know, my house, this is our home. We work together as a team. They have their chores just the same as I had chores when I was growing up, just to teach them accountability and responsibility. Yeah. And it's not that, you know, again, that you can't do, you know, there's limitations as to what you can do. You can do whatever you want. So, you know, when my youngest daughter, I'll remember this, when she was first learning to ride a bike, she was so determined and she kept falling down. And I love this because, you know, you get a 4-year-old looking at you saying, okay, mommy, it's okay. When you fall down, you just get back up and keep trying again. Aww, so great. Which is so great, you know, and you know, that was my childhood, is living in an environment that you weren't, it wasn't gender specific. It wasn't limiting you as to what you can and can't do. Mm-hmm. What's interesting about that is when going into the workforce, and fast forward into that, you know, let's talk about gender specific or limiting, you know, people or females as to what they can and can't do. I'll be honest, it was really confusing for me at the beginning because I grew up in this environment and it's like, what do you mean I can't do this? What do you mean I can't have a career or have a company and also have kids and be a wife and be a mother? I should know my own personal limitations. It shouldn't be thrown on me by outside forces saying, well, you know.
Was that happening?
Oh, it's happened. Yeah. I'll never forget, I think my first job at the bank, and I remember when I was working full time, I wanted to there was a position opening up for a lending manager at the time. So I went to the general manager, the branch manager at the time saying, okay, I want to apply for this position. I think I was maybe about 20, 21, 22 years old at the time. And I'll never forget, you know, one of his comments to me was, you know, Fran, you know, one day you're going to probably want to get married and have kids. And I'm, you know, again, going back to my childhood, I'm like, okay, what does that have to do with me having a career? Right. But you know what? I'm thankful for those things because I've really learned in life, just like my daughter falling down, any struggles you have, it's okay. You just get back up and you keep trying. You don't let things push you down or hold you back if you have that desire in you to do something.
Other people's comments.
Other people's comments. Yeah. You wash it off you. There are limitations. But you're bang on correct, Kyra. I think most people out there use their own experiences and those limitations to hold you back. Yes. And you got to learn to sort of scrub that off yourself and scrub that off your back and realize that you can do anything you really want to.
Yes. So I want to ask you about mentorship because I just recently saw Michelle Obama. I was fortunate enough to go see her. Yay! And she talked about mentors and how she wouldn't be where she is today if she hadn't had mentors in her life. So have you had mentors, and how did those come about in your life?
Mentors are very, very important in life. But I think what people discount is there's mentors around you constantly. You know, having conversations with as many people as possible. Some mentorships can be a 10-minute conversation, and listening to that conversation and the wisdom that you get from it. You know, I do believe that things sort of drop into your life from the universe as you need it, and advice will drop in as you need it. You know, pay attention to things that are being said to you. Yes. You know, people have a tendency to take negativity the wrong way or criticism the wrong way. If someone's coming to you with love and conviction and giving you advice, take it in a way from a positive aspect. That is someone that wants you to become a better person, wants you to do better things. I do believe the world is not like an evil place where people are going to give you advice that's going to put you down in a hole and not let you progress and become who you want to. I had great mentors over my life. I've been very blessed to have tons of different mentors at different levels. The thing about mentors that I've learned is, again, going back to it, sometimes they stay a very long time and sometimes they stay a short time. Once that lesson is learned from them, your growth has happened, you've gone to the next plateau, it's time for you to find someone else that you can mentor with. Mentoring to me is also more about a friendship, and it's more about a conversation. It shouldn't be a mentorship. Okay, let's sit down on a scheduled time every Wednesday at 10 o'clock and let's talk about your week. To me, that's more coaching than mentorship.
Right.
Mentorship is more of a friendship. Calling that person up on the phone, someone that's going to be a mirror reflection of you, and you know, to share their own experiences and tell you what they've gone through, so you can learn from that and excel in your life and your career where you want to go, as opposed to you having to go through those lessons yourself. I've had mentors come in like the strangest forms. I remember once I was in downtown Toronto. I had a crappy day. We all have crappy days. And I was out there getting a breath of fresh air. And this old lady just came up and started talking to me. It was the bizarrest thing, but you know, she was saying things that I needed to hear at that particular moment. You could have a conversation with someone at a coffee shop, you know, the person serving you coffee. Again, it's opening your spirit, your eyes, opening your ears to lessons that are being thrown out to you. Mentors are not necessarily long-term, they can be short-term as well. Yeah. It's just advice.
In terms of social glass ceilings, this is of all the glass ceilings, usually the toughest one to talk about, just because it can be uncomfortable or painful. But I'm wondering what you think is the best way for women to deal with social glass ceilings, and how we overcome this and help men, certain men, level up and become better.
You know, first and foremost, again, it's about being open and being honest about the way you feel. I'm a firm believer in, you know what, everyone's opinion matters. As long as you come from a place of heart, and you know your own core values and you speak it, you have every right to sort of speak that out there. And it's the biggest mistake that I see women saying, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to say anything because I don't want to hurt other people's feelings. Yeah. You know, I've had these conversations where I've turned around and said, okay, but it's okay that your feelings are hurt. How does that make any sense? Like, you're gonna, you know, absorb those negative energies and have your feelings hurt and feeling uncomfortable just to save face for the other person. Sometimes you're going to have to say things that are not going to be so nice, but it's the way, I'm a firm believer, it's the way you communicate and the way that you say things to people. You know, I've been in those situations. Yeah. I think, you know what, honestly, I hate to say it, I'm pretty sure almost every woman out there has been in those situations from different degrees and different levels. Yeah. You know, I think back to a situation, you know, that I've been in where, you know, it was in a social setting. I didn't like the behavior and I called the person out on it. But the way I called it out, and I said, okay, you know what, let's take a step back here for a second. I said to the gentleman, first of all, I know you have daughters and I know you have granddaughters and you have a wife. How would you feel if you found out that someone just did exactly what you did to me to them? And you wait for them to respond. And I waited for them to respond. And I see the light bulb going off and I say, you know, it's not okay. And I said, I'm only telling you this because I know you're a good person and I highly respect you. Like, think before you do things and think how it would impact if you heard it happening in your own personal life. It's not okay. I also believe that when you're put in a difficult situation, there's a reason for it. And it's growing you to go to the next level so you can move on to something better. don't close your eyes off to opportunities. There's a reason why maybe that door is going to close and eventually another one will open. Again, it comes back, we talked about childhood and upbringing, whatever. There's a lot of great men out there. And you know what? They may say or do things that they don't, it's just something wired in their DNA. They don't realize what they're doing because it was an accepted behavior for so long.
Sure, absolutely.
I'm talking at the softer levels, okay?
Yeah,
Some of the other stuff, obviously, that's not good behavior.
Yeah.
They may not realize what they're doing. So maybe, think of it this way. If you calling it out, you might make someone a better person. They may not realize because of their social upbringing of, the way that they're behaving is not acceptable.
Yes, exactly.
So, it might be a good thing. If they can't change, again, like we said, move on. It's hard. It really is. And I know there's people out there that are saying, I've heard these stories before. I can't do it because, I need my job. I need my career. I call those the excuses. When you put in a situation, it's fight or flight, right? For fear. And people will typically come up with excuses of why they shouldn't do something as opposed to why they should. Do your list of why you should do things as opposed to why you shouldn't do things and concentrate on the positive versus the negative when you're in that situation.
So Frances, the word that comes to mind always when I think of you is the word tribe. So have you just surrounded yourself with the best people in life? Like, how did you find your tribe?
You know what? Surround yourself with people that have the same core values and have the same beliefs as you. And again, that's the definition of tribe, and it does make sense. That's what helps you excel. Those are the people that are gonna prop you up and push you up, and you're gonna help each other and work together as a team, so you all succeed in your life, not just your career, your life in general. Yeah. I think too many people accept things that they don't believe in their core values just because, again, they don't want to hurt people's feelings. They don't want to say their opinion. Remember, life's long, but life is short. And I think a lot of people forget that. Like life, you don't know how long you have on this earth. And life can be anywhere from, you could have a great 100 years, you can have 50 years, you don't know what it is. Don't waste any given day. I also believe there's like 2 billion people on this planet plus, 2 billion, 3 billion car or something like that. If there are people that don't get along with you, it's okay. Love them out the door. Yes. Like just love them out the door. You don't need to be friends with everybody if they don't meet your core values. Now, I'm not saying to be a jerk to them. Yeah. I'm not saying not to be professional with them. You just don't have to have them in your inner core. Yes. So you have your inner core of your trusted people, and then it kind of spirals from there.
So knowing what you know today, what kind of advice would you give to your 20-year-old self?
Take more chances. Take more risks.
Really?
Take more chances, take more risks. You're going to be okay. And do more. Do more. Oh my God, when I was 20, I had so much more time on my hand. As you know, as a mother too, you have less and less time. Yes. Do more. You know what? If you want to take that course, do it. Take those risks. If you have that thought and that passion that is the job and the career you want, take that risk and do that job. Worst case scenario, it doesn't work out. You get experience. It's going to open up a career path possibly to another direction. People forget that every little milestone in your life leads up to where you are today. So you need those failures to learn so you can go on to your next experience. And again, it's hitting those plateaus in your life. But I think that's the biggest thing. Have no fear. And also, again, stand up for yourself and know your core values.
I want to ask you about emotional glass ceilings and if you've ever had one, and if so, what did you do to overcome it?
I started in banking part-time when I was 18 when I was in university. I went to school for psychology and social work. 3rd year into my degree, I got an offer from the bank for a full-time job. It's not that, I was doing well in school, I just didn't love it. My personality, as you know, I'm very ADD. Anyone knows that I go to a conference. It's very hard to keep me in a room for 3 hours straight, so a lecture hall was just killing me.
You're the one strolling around.
I'm the one strolling around. It's like, okay, I'm gonna go walk around and look at things, right? Yeah. So, when I got the offer, I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna take it. Because worst case scenario, I can always go back and finish my degree if it doesn't work out. That's the worst case scenario. But, one of the things of not having a degree, it took me a very long time. Like I probably hid that for probably a good 10 years of my career because I was in a banking environment where people had their BAs and their MBAs. And here I am with, an unfinished degree of high school education. Or you go to places in the bank, it would be the beginning, you introduce yourself, where you went to school, what you did. I would almost, I hate to say it, lie. I would say it, I would say gray. I would say I went to York University, but I never really technically said I finished it.
Sure.
Because I was afraid that people were going to look down on me.
Sure.
Right? That I didn't have the education, and I was young, and I was a female. So again, having that strength and that voice and realizing that, you know, I could do it myself, and it really doesn't matter. It's part of my experience and part of my growth. One of the other things that I did as well, and we were talking about that earlier, is I'm a big believer in reading. I mean, I love reading. I love absorbing things. You know, again, I sat there, I saw these people with degrees. I didn't finish my education. I said, okay, fine. So this is what I'm going to do. So I actually called the Schuler School of Business, said, can I have your reading transcript of all the books that they have to read for their courses? And then I would go through them one by one and start reading books and sort of self-educating myself. So, you know, every time I would hit emotional glass ceiling, I think as I age and as I get older, I recognize that energy, and when I feel low or when I feel crappy or when I feel shitty, and I talk myself off the ledge. I almost self-mentor myself, and I said, okay, I don't like feeling this way. What can I do to make myself feel better? Right? And it's being cognizant of that. Like, you really do have the power in yourself and your mind to do whatever you want and to talk yourself out of any situation. It's up to you to decide how you want to take that emotional, you know, negativity and thoughts in your mind.
Yes.
You want to either continue it, or you actually want to scream it and tell it, shut up. Really, like just shut up.
Yeah.
Shut up. You don't know any better. I'm not scared. I'm going to go do it. I'm going to figure it out. I may fall completely on my butt and look, you know, complete embarrassment, but I'll dust myself up. Like my daughter said, it's okay. When you fall down, you get up and you keep trying and you keep moving ahead.
Yeah. Considering you were having this big successful banking career, how and why did you decide to become an entrepreneur?
I was in the banking world for 20 years, long time. So a big part of my career, and I had a great job. It took me a long time to make a decision. That's the other thing which most people may or may not know about me. When I make a major decision in my life, it's not typically quick. It may seem quick, but I'm simmering and noodling on this thought probably for months in advance and trying to figure out what makes the most sense. And I weigh the pros and cons again, according to what are my core values? What do I want in my life? Because that's the most important thing. You know, and that's what most women have to realize as well. What's important to you? So, you know, to transgress, to go into this, what happened is I saw, it wasn't so much of an entrepreneur, it was in the sense of the mortgage industry. I saw the rules changing. I mean, I've been lending for close to 20 years. So I saw the difference in the banking. I saw how banks were changing their policies. I saw how relationships, I hate to say it, with banks didn't matter as much anymore, or it was getting more difficult. With online banking technology, I mean, most people don't go into a bank branch anymore. It's a lot different back in the days. Let's say when you and I started our first checking account, savings account, you went every day with the passbook, and, you know, they would give you the advice saying, hey, you know, Kyra, have you thought about doing this or paying down your mortgage? You know, all those little things sort of slowly disappeared. So I made that decision. I wasn't completely convinced in the way that I saw the banks going with their platform for mortgages. I knew enough about the brokering world because I did work with brokers and refer stuff out to them. And it was sort of a pivot point. My kids, I knew I wasn't having any more kids. You know, I was getting close to 40 years old. I have the saying that, you know, I count my days back from age of 40. I started doing that when I turned 40. Mm-hmm. So I believe I'm going to live till 80. So, you know, I keep counting down the years slowly.
Right.
So, you know, it was now or never, that moment. It was either I'm now 40 years old, I'm about to turn 40. I got to make this decision right now. Either I am going to stay with the bank, stay with the great, you know, tenure that I have, pension that I have, and be happy with it, or I'm going to jump off and do a job. And I jumped off and did the company because I didn't want to have regrets. I think that's what weighed on me the most. I knew, again, my core values. I knew who I was as a person. And I knew that I would wake up at, you know, age 65, 70 years old saying to myself, why didn't I take that risk? What if? I hate what ifs.
Right.
I really hate what ifs in life. I really go by my gut feeling. Yeah. I think if more people trusted their guts, and I call it energies.
Yeah.
You know, Kyra, when you walk into your room, you either feel really uplifted and great, or you feel really dragged down. You got to trust those energies, gut feeling, energies, intuition. You know, it's being in tune to yourself, what your core values are. I knew that if I stayed at that point, I would regret it, and I wouldn't be happy. And then, you know, time is ticking away. So we left. It was myself and my two business partners. We jumped, we left. I had, different people throughout my life saying, are you nuts? Are you crazy? You're like, you're in the middle of your, 40 years old or about to turn 40. You have this great tenure. You're giving up you get the naysayers out there. Again, I was very firm on my core values. This is what I'm going to do. And going back to when I didn't finish my university degree, I figured out, what's the worst that can happen? You can always go back.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
You can always go back.
One of the things that women always want me to ask, and they're very curious about, is how are you able to be a successful career woman and manage children and all the responsibilities that come with motherhood? So how do you juggle all of that successfully?
I think it's a combination of structure and not taking it too seriously. It really is a balance between the two. And I do believe there's no such thing as work, the saying work-life balance. It really isn't a work-life balance for me because work and life is one and the same. There's not a work Francis. There's not a life Francis. There's just Francis. Mm-hmm. There's no difference. There's no segmenting between the two. One has to be there in order for the other to be there. A lot of the things that I do in my house, and we talked about this too, and I've talked to other women, is, run your house like you run your business. And so what I mean by that is scheduling. Scheduling is so important. Again, going back to some mentors I had in my life, I had this a long time ago, great mentor at the bank, and I mean, he's the one that got me on, like how important scheduling is. It's not just scheduling your work, it's scheduling your life and scheduling you. Like everything should be in a schedule. That's how I maintain it, is by scheduling my week and coordinating it. A typical day a weekend in my house is weekends are meant to spend with family, but also get the house in order. Mm-hmm. So, to run this through you, for example, like Sundays to me are sacred. And again, it goes back to my childhood, not in a religious sense, but, I grew up in the time. Do you remember, Kyra, when you were young, Sundays? I don't know if it's the same here where you grew up, or I can't remember. You were in Vancouver, the Prairies, right? I think. Yeah. But you remember Sundays back in the day, everything was closed. Yes. Right? So it was really family time. It was a time to sort of hunker down, get the house together, spend time together. I treat Sundays very much the same. So Sundays for me are meal prep for the week. Being so organized that I have bags for the girls for school and for their activities. Is everything organized for the week for that? Are all in the wintertime, do we have the gloves or snowsuits? Because the morning routine is the most stressful routine in any household. So, I know when we get up, boom, everything's in order. We can get them out the door. But then work starts. And when work starts, again, schedule. It's game time. So, 9 a.m. to 9:15, I'm doing emails. 9:15 to 9:30, I'm doing a couple of phone calls. I'm taking advantage of every single minute in there of every single day to make sure that everything is done and not get distracted by negative energies or naysayers out there. And I think that's what drains most people in their day, is they get consumed by negativity that drags down their day and then deters them from their goal of what they need to do. The other thing too that's very important to manage a household with kids is don't forget to schedule time in for yourself. Yeah. and most women really forget to do that. Once a week, schedule something in for you. Do it an hour. It's not going to kill you. Whether it be if you love working out or walking in nature, go take a massage. Hell, sit in a room and stare at the wall for 1 hour if you want and close your eyes and meditate. Mm-hmm. I mean, that is so important, as well as to be able to structure your week, to take care of your kids, to take care of your work, but most importantly, make sure you take care of yourself, because if there is no you, there is no one there to take care of the family or the work. The other thing with running a business, especially with mortgage brokers too, is when you're dealing with your clients and referral sources, remind them you'll know your voice and your language, but you got to remind them as well you're not a machine. You got to remind them as well that you have a family as well. Again, setting boundaries is very important. Mm-hmm. I read a lot of comments of people working 24 hours a day. You don't have to work 24 hours a day. Know what works for you. One of the things that I do is my referral sources, my clients know that my weekends are very sacred to me because I do have a family. I've told them that. Mm-hmm. Not to say that they aren't important, but you coach them and you guide them through it. So, a lot of my referral partners know when it comes after Friday night, if they really, really need to get a hold of me, text me that's urgent, I'll call you. Otherwise, we can talk on Monday.
So in terms of being a leader, which you very much are, what do you think is the most important characteristic a leader should possess?
I think the most important quality, again, is going back to that, is heart. That to me is a very, very important quality to have. With heart, you have compassion. You have the ability to listen to other people's opinions and not just your own. With heart, you're not letting ego take over. You know, we all have that little ego monster inside of us all the time. And the ego monster that's inside of you, you know what they're going to tell you? You can't do stuff. That's the voice that tells you, don't do it. Oh my God, were you crazy? You're not good enough. Why should I trust that person's opinion? Why should I take advice from them? They don't know any better than me. You know, having heart overcomes the ego that's inside all of us and softens it down and allows you to have the ability to listen to other people's opinion, to have compassion in situations and to know that, you know what, the world's not against you and there to do harm. Again, people are there, you know, telling you certain things, or people are doing things a certain way because, again, maybe that's their core beliefs, and that's okay. You got to learn how to let go. Heart is very, very important. I could tell you, even working, I mean, I worked in the corporate world for over 20 years. Some people have it, some people don't. The best leaders that I've worked with are the ones that had the biggest heart.
I love that. I totally agree. I totally agree. That makes all the difference in the world too.
And having heart is very difficult. Like a lot of leaders I've seen throughout my career, again, this goes back to a very young age, feel that they have to put on a tough exterior in order to be a true leader, be taken seriously. And if anything, I think it's quite the opposite. You know, as a leader, if you love your employees are going to work for you even harder. Yes. And that's where true profitability comes and true happiness comes from.
And my favorite question, what is your spirit animal?
What I went with is I went with the brown bear.
Brown bear.
Which is interesting. You know, most people think bears are aggressive. Do you know bears are only aggressive, especially brown bears? Brown bears will only attack if you're in if you are a threat to their sort of their tribe or their young. They stand up, they're courageous. They are in the native sort of community, whatever, for the spirit animals. They're the ones that invoke courage in others and strength in others. So that's why I chose the brown bear, because I try to help as many people as possible. As you know, Kyra, if they come to me, you can do it. Like, you really can. And you have the strength and the courage in yourself to do whatever you want in life.
Thank you, Verico, for your generous sponsorship in making this video possible.